Hey everyone, thank you so much for checking out the Giovanna guide. For my beginner or intermediate players out there, if there's any terms that I mentioned that seem a little bit perplexing or you don't quite understand the full meaning of, well, I really recommend checking out the fighting game glossary by Infill down below in the link in the description, so that way you can catch up to date with any Guilty Gear terms that you're curious about that I use throughout this video. If there's something in the game itself that you feel like you're missing, then please make sure you check out the game's mission mode first, as it does have a lot of helpful information in there to help you get a grip of the mechanics in Guilty Gear Strive. Alright, with that all out the way, let's get straight into the Giovanna guide. Thank you all again so much for watching, and I'll see you at the end of the video. Come on. Hey my boy, don't get too discouraged. It's the first couple of days. I mean, look at the match. You had the spirit. All you need is a tiny push. Come here, let me show you this guide. Hello everyone, and welcome to this in-depth guide focusing completely on the character Giovanna of Guilty Gear Strive fame, going over her combos, neutral, and yes, even some tips on how to get over some of those peskier matchups. So kick back and don't get too frustrated with matches, take a quick break from online and let this guide show you the light to figure some things out. But first things first, let's get comfortable with this chart right here. This is the anime notation chart. It'll help you out when we get to the combo portion of this video, so make sure you keep exactly where the fight stick notations are and have that in the back of your mind as we go throughout the guide. Alright, you guys ready? Let's get straight into part 1. Giovanna is a rushdown centric character. Her entire kit revolves around controlling the air with anti-airs and dust loops that can lead into free wall break combos and or using her DP or crouching heavy slash to hold back opponent's aerial offense. While her jumping in the air can be effective for cutting off certain attacks, the aerial attacks and movement she has usually get snuffed out by characters with disjoint weapons. Characters like Ram, Sol, Mei, Axel, Kai, those are going to be some of the biggest offenders of beating you up in the air and pretty much annihilating you. So try to shake the habit now of jumping all around in neutral, especially since Gio has by far the craziest dash you'll ever see. Unlike other characters in Strive, Gio has a full-on step dash that covers full screen into land dashes. She can also act out of the dash with any button she likes, whether it be heavy slash, standing slash, punch, kick, doesn't matter. This is integral to how you handle block strings and block pressure. Being able to dash in and out of attacks can make for some excellent pressure. Speaking of which, you're probably wondering, well, how do we even get our pressure started with Giovanna? Well, thankfully I got you covered. It's all thanks to the delayed Gatling system. In Guilty Gear Strive, every character can delay the next hit of their Gatling combo, which is like slash slash or slash heavy slash or whatever it may be for your character. And for example, you'll see something like this. This is me mashing out my block string, close slash, far slash, heavy slash into 214K. See the gap? Once the block strings are done, you basically lose your turn in neutral. However, let's say we delay our block string just a tiny bit and the Sol happens to be mashing like far slash or punch or whatever it may be. Let's take a look at what happens. Now that looks pretty sick, right? Not only did we get an easy wall break, we also get to build a bit of meter backup, reset neutral, and keep the pressure up on our opponents. This type of delayed pressure while confirming into a full combo, or at the bare minimum a 2 to 3 hit, is what makes Giovanna so powerful. Either we're winning the match by capitalizing off of our opponent's mistakes, or we explode on them and completely control neutral and always get full combos that just end up KOing them in the end. Alright, that's great and all, narrator guy, but how do I get past all these projectiles on screen? Thankfully, Gio has tons of tools to handle projectiles, all thanks to her 236K. You can run through any projectile that isn't a multi-hit, yes, including Ino's musical note. Just make sure you mind your distance before using it and closing the gap. Now, yes, Geo's 236K does have some pretty lengthy startup frames, so the timing on taking on these projectiles is going to be up for you to figure out in the heat of a match. However, it's definitely worth labbing in training mode and making sure you get the timing down, so when you go online, it's a breeze taking opponents on. A good rule of thumb is if there's enough time where you could see Kai Kisuke get his swords charged for a projectile, or Soul putting his junkyard dog on the floor, and of course we could all see Ino's music note, then use that as your time to pounce and punish for a ton of damage, and it usually will result in a counter hit as well. Now remember, this is all just general advice. Sadly, as much as I'd love to coach you guys during online matches and help predict what your opponents are going to do, I just can't really do that. I do hope you find the advice I gave useful when it comes to closing the gap against opponents, and I hope you go in training mode and lab some stuff and incorporate it in your gameplay. So with that being said, let's recap. Number 1, anti-air, anti-air, anti-air. Do not let people jump in for free. Cover those jump ins with crouching heavy slash, her 214K, or if you happen to be close enough, her close slash button. This will usually result in big counter hit combos, and if any of these whiff, you can always rely on meter, as we do tend to build it quite quickly with a backdash RC to keep neutral alive and make sure you stay in that scramble and prevent yourself from getting hit. However, if you do land a hit as mentioned previously, then I got something quite swell to show you in the combo section. Secondly, delayed Gatling block strings. Keep the opponent guessing by not just mashing block strings, but instead taking your time with the timing of each hit. This way it'll confirm into a counter hit, or maybe you'll just catch them lacking for some humongous damage. Just make sure we mind our distance. Giovanna has extremely long reaching normals for a reason. No need to get up close and personal when you have to close the distance effortlessly with either a step dash or a safe long reaching button like her standing kick. Just understand that almost everything combos into 214K, and on top of that, if spaced well, it shouldn't be punishable after a block. If you want to get crazy with a mix-up and you do happen to be up close and personal, try 214S as an overhead move that crosses opponents up on block. Thirdly, make sure you mind your distance. Don't just go in there rushing, mashing far slash, especially because it's a rapid fire bunch of kicks that can easily get punished into a counter hit and usually result in an explosive death for your character. What I recommend is playing the dance, dashing back and forth with their step dash ability, trying your hardest to get close slash, as that's going to result in your biggest combo starters. Play their game for a little bit, close that gap, and play some safe distances with your normal buttons, because to be fair, she is a bit on the stubby side. Again, try your hardest not to rely on the far slash kick. It's only going to get you so far. That, no pun intended. Okay, with neutral advice out the way, let's Roman cancel ourselves into some combos. Combo notations will also be in the description with timestamps, and I'll also help explain the best routes and why we use them for each combo during the next section. These are good old bread and butters of Giovanna's kit. Nothing too flashy and usually used as a way to get decent damage. Use these if you land a stray hit. However, if you land a strong counter hit, we got something for you coming up right now. Now, yes, some of these combos are a bit tighter linked, with many delays and micro walking needed to perform them. However, the damage you get out of them is much more worth it to pull everything off. Without having to burn meter or RC usually, or when it's used it's a guaranteed wall combo, you are going to get a chunk of damage that's almost sometimes over 50% life. This means that when we get into scrambles and we eventually win these said scrambles, we get into full situations where we not only can potentially two-touch opponents, but completely run the gambit and run the field of the match. This also means we won't have to rely on our strike and leave technique, which means like getting 2k into spinning back kick and then backing off and going for Oki. None of that's here with these types of combos. You land that hit, you take it all the way to the moon, and you can capitalize off of big damage, and not only that, break them through the wall and get all of that meter you just spent back. It is extremely busted. This is exactly why Giovanna is going to shape up to be one of the best characters as long as we keep our execution high. So yeah, as you can see, Giovanna's combos are extremely good. Tons of damage, very fast and long reaching buttons, and as long as you space them out correctly, you will always remain dominant when it comes to finding openings and block strings, which as you can tell leads to some pretty meaty damage. Finally, we have general matchup knowledge I feel like you guys should know. Now, as stated previously, sadly I can't go over every little detail and how to handle certain situations in a match. On top of that, I also can't go super in depth because it's week 1 and things are still relatively new. To be fair, we have had a lengthy amount of time with the beta and the game plans haven't changed up too much, so just take this as a grain of salt, kind of general advice to help you out in certain matchups. And if you think there's something you could do different or something that you feel like works better, please comment in the comments down below so we can all help each other out here. Alright, without further ado, let's look at Soul Bad Guy. First Soul, we have zero choice but to respect all of his buttons and try to bait out his DP, especially when it comes to his far/distance. Once he does Gunflame, you already know what to do. It's time to close that gap with 236k and either take the punish damage or hopefully capitalize off of a counter hit. These are the explosive ways to get in on Soul, but for the most part, yes, you're going to be blocking and tension blocking a ton, and you're just going to have to understand that's a part of the game. Take it easy, take deep breaths and find the gaps in his strings, and then capitalize and punish. Kai Kisuke. Now, to be fair, I'm still struggling in learning this matchup, but my best advice goes as followed. Number 1, make sure you play extremely slow. Stagger your Gatlings and catch them lacking on a counter hit, as they usually tend to mash and try to bait out his DP just like Soul. Number 2, anti-air every chance you can get. Crouching heavy slash is usually our best friend here, as you're relatively close to the ground and going to completely avoid a lot of his incoming aerial attacks. Close slash is also a good option, but 9 out of 10 times you're going to go into a trade. Make sure when you land this, you go into a full combo and get every bit of damage you can. If he does projectile, don't rely on 236k unless you get a hard read. Otherwise, since the startup frames are usually slower and his projectile was a bit faster than usual, you're just going to have to play defensively and jump over it and bait it out. With Mei, just wait. Sadly, I don't have much advice as we're all still learning this matchup. It's pretty hard, but it should go as followed from my experience. 1, do not jump in, just anti-air. Mei's disjoints are extremely hard to take on, especially if you air dash, so make sure you play it safe. And yes, sadly, respect that dolphin. Don't press any other buttons that aren't faster than 5k or 5p. Maybe if you space it well, you might be able to get a 5/ button for a counter hit, but I'd still be extremely cautious. We have no choice but to respect her buttons and try not to give her too much screen space, and you're going to end up doing just fine. Again, avoid that corner at all costs, otherwise it's going to be a heck of a time getting out. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, I'm ready. For Axel, you want to stay in his face and mash. No, I'm not kidding. You do not want to let up. Make sure you're up close, bait out his wake up supers, and don't even think about letting him use one vision and everything will be Gucci. Oh, and also, don't you dare jump in. If you ever see him jumping, either just go for your crouching heavy / punish, as it's 99% of time just going to either trade or blow up for a counter hit combo, or if you're feeling a little bit jumpy and you don't mind, go ahead and just get the free grab and set up for an Oki scenario. Best case scenario, you knock him down, you get free Oki, and you get back to welling on him and watching his health bar deplete. Worst case scenario, he throw techs, and once again we go back to welling on him. This matchup, in my opinion, is super free for Geo players as long as you don't let his long chain scare you, and on top of that, make sure you stay in mind that he is plus on his crouching kick and sweeping dust attack. If you ever see him do that, 9 out of 10 times either tension block it to avoid and get back in there for pressure, or if you are one of the lucky few that can time it, just jump over and again start your punish for big damage. Now for Chip and Milia, this is a little bit harder than other matchups. They can be very overwhelming with what I would call suffocating pressure. Tons of blocking cross-ups, avoiding tick throws, jumping out of command grabs, etc. What we're looking for here is stopping pressure before it can begin. Use your 6P as an invulnerable move to snuff out jump ins and or dash up strikes. If they come in from above, space accordingly and punish with crouching heavy slash and or close slash. These buttons are going to once again give you big counter hits and usually leave the opponent scratching their heads about what to do next. Another big thing that I highly recommend you guys follow up with is making sure you actually don't take the throw. Try to practice tick throwing because it is very fast in this game and it's going to take a little bit of getting used to, especially if you sometimes have to jump in with, say, someone like Milia's pressure, where she'll throw a giant circle that will encapsulate you and you are usually going to have to jump out of that or mash a quick button to get out of that kind of block stun that she's going to put you in. Sorry, but we don't really have much information on Zata right now. To be fair, no one's really playing this guy from what I've seen in lobbies. It's still early days, so I'll update this section of the guide later, maybe in the description or something, but pretty much the same stuff. Don't catch yourself jumping in, bait out his supers or whatever, and always make sure you kill Eddie so you can start your pressure and mix-ups. So for Ram Lethal, this is a very difficult matchup in my opinion. She's one of those characters where we have to respect all of her buttons. If she starts welling on you in a block string, you want to respect it, but do whatever you can do not to let her push you in that corner and start throwing swords at you, because that's where our entire match is going to fall apart. When you're in the corner, it is extremely hard to find an opportunity to burst to get Ram Lethal off of you, especially if you're caught dead in the air. If you're in the air and the swords are coming and you get like stuck, you just got to hold that. Like, you just got to eat the damage. If you burst during that, you will lose your turn and you are going to get walled, splatted regardless. So I really just recommend playing her game for a little bit. Eventually, she will have to attack on the ground, and that's when I recommend using your burst. And once that happens, you want to dash in and close that gap as quickly as humanly possible. But again, not right in front of her face. A good rule of thumb also against a lot of Ram Lethals is dash in all the way. See if you can bait out that wake up super, the Morto Bato, which is where she's going to slam her swords on the ground. It's like frame 1 or something crazy like that. And once you can punish that with a regular block and then go for your combo string, you should be in pretty good hands. That's a huge counter hit. That's a lot of damage, and you're going to be a-okay. If she's jumping all around, either go for an air grab and dash in and get it that way, or do your crouching heavy slash and punish her, and keep the combos and momentum going. But those are our best advice when it comes to dealing with Ram Lethal. You just have to respect a lot of her buttons, similar to Soul and Kai and all those types of characters. And when you finally get in, you're going to have a blast, you're going to win the match, and you're going to feel just good. So again, don't get frustrated with this character. Just respect her buttons. It's just the nature of Guilty Gear Strive, and you got to keep it pushing, get those counter hits, and you'll be just fine. So for Potemkin, he's not too difficult to take on, mainly due to the fact that he isn't too mobile and we can kind of run around him and cross him up and do a lot of crazy stuff. But the one thing you really have to understand is you cannot be jumping in all the time. If you're jumping in a ton, he is going to blow up and punish you very hard. He can aerial grab you with his super. He can Shoryuken grab you and do his Mega Fist to charge it up. Like, there's all sorts of options he has to take you out. So you don't really want to get hit with any of that nonsense. What I really recommend is staying up in his face, but again, playing a respectful distance. He can't just wake up and command grab you, right? So you have to play the striking and throwing range and all that. And when you get in his face and you put on a lot of pressure, it's gonna be really hard for him to keep up, especially if he says like wake up super or something. You can usually grab him right out of that. So make sure you just respect the distance, respect the wake up super timing and all of that, and just go for a good old grab, keep him at bay, and you're gonna be a-okay. This character's not too difficult for us, but just again, remember, don't go in for jumping in a lot and just respect a lot of your buttons. You're gonna be faster than his. You know what to do. Now with Leo, it's pretty much the same kind of rushdown deal with Chip and Milia, but this time you have to put a lot of respect on his projectiles. His projectiles are easily the craziest cross-ups that you could get hit by, especially towards higher levels, so you really want to respect and watch out for those. If you see him running through you with this little berserker slash, make sure you either just grab him out of it, or if you want to, you could do your 214S, catch him lacking, and then you could go for a full combo as demonstrated right now. There's a lot of tech we kind of have with Leo that I'm still trying to put into practice, and it's a little hard to recognize these scenarios and actually throw them into a match for me, but they are very effective, and I do recommend this character that you grind a ton in training mode because you do have a bunch of counterplay we're still trying to figure out. So yeah, he's not too difficult to take on. Don't get too discouraged. That's just the nature of the character. He's a very kind of mix-up heavy, cross-up heavy character, so you just have to respect a lot of his options, but just know we do have a lot of things we could do to get him out of mixing us up, whether it's bursting, whether it's grabbing him out, or going for a full-on counter hit combo. So that's the type of stuff we are going to have to look out for when we're respecting his pressure, when we're in this matchup, and when we're just dealing with this character and getting ready for these next scrambles. Agoriyuki, for some reason at a lower to mid level, loves jumping in, but you're gonna have to beat them at their own game here. You want to jump in and grab them, as it's usually faster than trying to press a button, and you're gonna get some free Oki after it if you can land them on the floor and keep Okiing them to death. Nago's defenses are usually ODs. These guys are usually the best in the game when it comes to that, so try not to rush in and respect all of his sword's range, because it will take up a good chunk of the screen, and if he gets one hit, it can be absolutely devastating. However, when he gets up close and starts teleporting to you, either cut him off with a 5p or 5k, which should lead into some okay damage, and of course, it'll allow you to control neutral. Those are the type of things you're going to be fishing for throughout this matchup, and it's going to be a very strike and go kind of match. Don't expect to get too many full combos out of it unless you really catch this guy lacking. For Onji, we haven't really fought him a lot either. We just kind of play the game against him. Just know a lot of your jabs are going to cut off his jump ins, and don't really let his spinning fan counters do anything to throw you off your guard. If he's jumping in, you already know what to do. 6p into 214s and get your combos started, especially if you have RC. And if you see him doing the little spin around and do a mini hop for a grab, all you're going to want to do is either tech that throw or press something like 2p, 5p, or 5 slash or something quick to get a little combo started, or, you know, something of that nature. Interestingly enough, you're actually going to watch out for his anti-air, especially the little spinning one that knocks you up in the air, his Fujo, I believe, and he can call out his umbrella for a dust loop kind of combo. Yeah, that's very vicious stuff, and if you ever see his heavy slash in midair, it's a little bit hard to counter, but 6p and 2hs are going to do the job. So you just, again, kind of have to play his game a little bit. Don't try to rush too far in because he has all these counter hits and stuff, and make sure you actually rely on grabs just a tad bit more than you would for other matchups, and you should do just fine. And finally, we have Ino. For her, we're just going to have to be patient. Try not to mash stuff out even if you think it's safe. Respect her mix-ups, know where the gaps in are her block strings, and then open her up. For example, you'll see Ino re-hover dash in from time to time and restart pressure, but if you know, we could just 5p or 2p into 214k for a nice chunk of damage, and if you catch her charging up her spinny orange spark move, just 6p, it's completely invincible, you'll get a free hit, and if you have the meter, once again, RC, push her to the corner, and blow up for the damage. If she jumps in with that guitar swing, you already know what to do. Step back, 2 heavy slash, and hit our win condition. Oh, and I don't know how I forgot this considering I have someone that plays this character, but it's Faust. He's not that great, honestly. Grab him out the air, snuff out all of his normals and stuff. Don't let him get distance at all. Stay up close to him and just keep doing Oki, knockdown, and pressure. I've fought him literally like 3 times so far throughout my entire 40 plus hours of playtime. Like, no one touches this character except for the Hook Gang God clips you see online. So that's just a taste of general matchup knowledge you can use before you enter the battlefield. But before I let the freshly chained Geos out into the wild, I need you all to listen and understand something. Please take the time to sit down and practice this stuff. Go into training mode and lab those block strings from characters like Soul, Kai, and others until you get that timing down pat. Not only is this good for helping you learn Giovanna and figure out what buttons are safe and what buttons aren't until we get some framed out or something of that nature, but you're also going to learn how other characters fill in other people's hands. It's going to help you have more respect for the moves that you're going to be encountering when you go online. Go ahead and take the time to lab more stuff than just this guide. For example, one of the things I omitted from this guide was the fact that Giovanna, when she has 2 bars of tension, does a little bit more damage and takes a little bit less damage when she's on the offensive or when she's on the defensive. The reason why I didn't really bring this up is because, well, have you seen the way Guilty Gear Strive plays? A lot of mid to high level players, and even on the beginner side of the spectrum, are usually going to be using RC a ton, so you're rarely going to be able to take advantage of the fact that you have 2 full bars of tension because we're always spending it during RC combos, and once it's spent, our damage basically goes back to normal. Find things that extend beyond this, and that way you can teach new tech to the masses. Yes! Finally! Oh, so glad I took the time to learn the game, man. That's what it's about right there. VIP, Celestial Floor. Alright, guess that guide wasn't half bad. Thank you guys so much for watching towards the end of the Giovanna guide. It genuinely means so much to me. I hope you all enjoyed the tips and tricks I've provided. If there's anything that you found with this guide that you wanted to add, or things you found with the Giovanna that you think would help and go a long way, please comment them down below in the comment section. And of course, if you enjoy this content, leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more FGC and game review content throughout the future. I will try to make other guides in Guilty Gear Strive on characters and stuff that I find interesting. However, I cannot promise that I'll do a guide for every single character, at least in the ginormous, expansive length that I've done with this one. Hopefully this is the be-all, end-all for now, and like the ultimate Geo guide. Yeah, thank you guys again for watching, and have a wonderful day.
この後ジム行く？でもあそこ油の匂いきついんだよ。